Winning Blueprint presents.
Draft Zone.
Welcome to the Draft Zone. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up. And with this series, we want to focus in on every single team in the National Football League's 2013 NFL Draft. Break it down, pick by pick, round by round, analyze their draft, give each and every single pick a score, come up with an aggregate score for the particular team in question. Today we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and their draft, and grade it out. Now, we use our baseball grading scale as always here in the Draft Zone and in the lab room. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the draft wrap-up because with these players, you don't know who's going to succeed and who's going to fail, who's going to be a bust or not. And as far as reaching is concerned, each team has a different grade on every player in this draft. One player on this team's draft board might be a first-round grade. On another team, it might be a third-round grade. So you can never really tell how far a team reached. And again, all these things are subjective, and so there will be no strikeouts here in this draft wrap-up. So what we want to do is look at these picks, and we'll take the pick itself into question, as well as different aspects of the pick. How it was made, where it was made. Did you have to trade up? Did you have to trade back? Did you acquire more picks? All of those things will be taken into consideration when talking about the overall grade of the draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I've got my draft board behind me. I've got my handy dandy pointer. Let's get to the board and get to work. Now we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. And we know this is Chip Kelly's first season as the Philadelphia Eagles head coach, so he wants to put a stamp and his imprint on this football team. The first way to do that, through the draft. So you're going to see a lot of players that fit what Chip Kelly wants to do. The Eagles are switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defensive scheme. And again, in the National Football League, you see so many different fronts. You're going to see variations of the 3-4. You're going to see a little bit of the 4-3. You're going to see nickel and dime packages. There's so many sub packages and so many different looks that you play a lot of different defenses, but their base defense is now going to be a 3-4. So you're going to see a lot of personnel trying to fit that mold of a 3-4 defense. You look at the needs for the Philadelphia Eagles. You start with the offensive line. They definitely could use some help. Their offensive line was putrid last year. You look at defensive line and safety. These are all needs that have to be met. Some could argue that the Eagles also have a need at quarterback. I don't really feel like they do. They have about 3 quarterbacks on the roster. If you feel like that's a need, to each its own. To me, it's not a need, but we'll talk about quarterback with the Philadelphia Eagles here in a second. Let's look at this draft board. Round, pick, player, position, school. We'll analyze each and every one of these picks, break them down, give them a grade. Let's start in the first round. Pick 4. Offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Lane Johnson, one of the elite tackles at the top of this draft. There were 3 of them, along with Fisher and Jokel. Johnson rounded out that group. To me, he was the best out of the 3. To me, because of the upside. I love Lane Johnson. The athleticism, the 4.7 40. He's a big man. But the thing I love most is the disposition. This guy is nasty. He's mean. I like my offensive linemen mean, grimy, for no reason. Hey, I got the man down. That's not good enough. I want to pancake him, pour a little bit of syrup on top. That's Lane Johnson. The guy's down. Lane's not satisfied. He wants more. He gets the guy down. He's going to the second level to look for more damage. He's looking to do more damage. That's what I want. I want my offensive lineman mean and looking for trouble. That's Lane Johnson. He can do it all. He played right tackle and left tackle, both successfully at Oklahoma. I think this guy is ultra versatile. I think he can give you a shot in the arm on your offensive line. And we know Chip Kelly is a guy that wants to maximize the most out of his offense, get as many plays as possible. Lane Johnson is a guy that's going to help you do that because he can get up and down the field. You want to throw little bubble screens out wide? Guess who's going to be one of the first guys out there to block? Lane Johnson. The athleticism off the charts. Here's a guy, ex-tight end. So he can run. That's evident by the 4.7 40. So we're talking about 6'5", 6'4", 300, and 15 pounds, 4.7 40. Vertical over 36 inches. I mean, we're talking about crazy numbers here from an offensive lineman. One of the most impressive combines you'll ever see out of any player, out of any position. Lane Johnson. I was absolutely enamored with Lane Johnson. I thought that he was the best offensive lineman in this draft. Eagles get a gem at 4, and it's really hard to not hit a home run at 4. I mean, let's face it. When you're at 4, you pick 4 players. One of them's going to be there, and it's supposed to be a blue chipper when you're picking that high in the draft. Eagles get one in Lane Johnson. It's an absolute home run. Watch it fly. You can put it on the board, Eagles. Home run, pick 4, first round, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Lane Johnson. You go to the second round. Pick 35, tight end out of Stanford, Zach Ertz. That's 2 really good picks back to back. I mean, if not for Tyler Eifert and his athleticism, Zach Ertz is the best tight end in this draft. For the second consecutive year, you could argue that a Stanford tight end would have been the best in the draft, but I think that designation goes to Tyler Eifert. He was the first one drafted off the board, and I feel like that was the right move. He was the best tight end in this draft, but right behind him was Zach Ertz, a guy that was highly productive at Stanford, and we're talking about a 6'5", 6'6", physical guy. We're talking about over 30 reps on the bench at the combine, so we know this guy is physical. He can block. He's athletic. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but guess what? He gets open. He understands the nuances of the tight end position. He understands how to create separation. And guess what? If you throw it in his general direction, guess what? Zach Ertz is probably going to catch the football because this guy has extremely strong hands. So there's not much to really complain about with Zach Ertz. There's too much to like here. And for me, it's back-to-back jacks for the Eagles in the first 2 rounds with their second round, 35th overall selection, tight end out of Stanford, Zach Ertz. It's another jack. You can put it on the board, Eagles. That's a home run. And it's back-to-back jacks. So if you're the Eagles, you started off this draft extremely well as you could expect. You get 2 blue chippers, to me, right off the bat. And so, not bad for Chip Kelly in his first time drafting in the National Football League. You look at it, and you think to yourself, who would know college players better than Chip Kelly? He just came from the college ranks, was one of the best college coaches in college football. And so, he knows a thing or two about these players, and you can tell it's evident that he knows exactly what he's looking for and what he wants. And he's got 2 good players early at the top of this draft in the first and second round. So now that we've gotten through the first 2 picks, let's look at our needs. And in the first round, Eagles selected offensive tackle Lane Johnson out of Oklahoma. That meets a need. So we'll take that off our needs list. And we'll move right along. Third round, pick number 67, defensive tackle out of LSU, Benny Logan. is the selection for the Eagles. Solid pick. Again, you look at what the Eagles are trying to do, moving from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense. You need beef. You need beef up front. You need girth. You need guys that are going to eat up space, eat up blockers, and allow the linebackers to roam free. So you look at this pick in the third round, and it's a solid selection. Benny Logan, defensive tackle out of LSU. Here's a guy that started to flourish when he was inserted in the lineup next to Michael Brockers in that LSU defensive front in 2011. He played really well. I thought when Brockers was there. Didn't play as well in 2012, but I thought that he's a guy that's really good against the run. You're looking for a guy that's going to stop the run, you're looking for Benny Logan. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to get after the quarterback from the defensive line position. I don't know if he's a guy that you want on the field on 3rd and 7 in obvious passing situations. I'm not sure if Benny Logan is the guy you want on the field. But on 1st and 2nd down, when the run is an option, Benny Logan's your man. And I think that if used correctly, and I feel like Chip Kelly and that Eagle staff will get the best out of Benny Logan, you got yourself a solid pick here. Is it a home run? No. Is it a triple? No. It's a solid pick. It's a double. In the 3rd round, pick 67, Benny Logan, defensive tackle out of LSU. To me, one-dimensional. But he's really good at that one thing. And that's fine by me. Stop the run. Benny Logan's your man. It's a double in the 3rd round. Benny Logan, defensive tackle out of LSU. Look at the 4th round. Pick 98. Got this one from the Jacksonville Jaguars. You look up, and what do you know? Quarterback out of USC, Matt Barkley. Much like another quarterback selected in the 4th round in Oklahoma quarterback Landry Jones, Matt Barkley was a victim of hanging around too long. You know the guy that stays at the party a little bit too long? Shows up early, drinks a lot, stays late, probably should have left 2 hours ago. That's Matt Barkley. He's the guy that he should have left the party 2 hours ago. Hey, man, you've had enough to drink. You should head on home. No, I'm fine, man. I'm I'm good. He's that guy. He should have left after his junior season. If he would have done so, he would have been a top 10 pick, possibly a top 5 pick. Instead, he hung around for an extra year, chasing a championship at USC. Of course, they weren't eligible for one in his junior season. He wanted to come back and try for one. That's fine, that's great. But guess what that did in the process? It exposed Matt Barkley. Again, much like Landry Jones, we were willing to overlook the deficiencies, the unathletic ability. We were willing to overlook that. That wasn't an issue because he could make all the throws from the pocket. But then he comes back for his senior year. They struggle. They lose some football games. He starts pressing. He starts turning the football over. All of a sudden now, his arm isn't as strong. Well, this is the same arm he had a year ago. That hasn't changed. Yeah, he's had a shoulder injury, but it's the same Matt Barkley. But another year of examination, another year under that scope. We got to really put the binoculars on, and we got to turn it up, and we focused in on him. And all of a sudden, his game was under the finest of scopes, and he couldn't live up to that kind of scrutiny. It was just too much. The turnovers, the losses, the lack of production, all of those things made Matt Barkley a 4th round selection. Does this mean that he's not going to be a great NFL quarterback? No, that's not what this means. What it means is he has deficiencies that are obvious, and maybe the Eagles got a steal in the 4th round. Maybe they didn't. You look at Chip Kelly and his offense, and you're thinking to yourself, how does he fit in the spread offense? Well, I'll tell you how Matt Barkley can fit into the spread offense. It's simple. You don't have to run in the spread offense. People think that in the spread offense, it's a necessity to run. That's a misconception. There's a lot of quick passes in the spread offense. Matt Barkley is a guy that can get the football out of his hands accurately and quickly. So, Matt Barkley can flourish in a spread offense. Did the Eagles need a quarterback? I don't think they did. Some argue that they do. But apparently Chip Kelly felt like this guy was the best player available on the board. And I think this was exactly that, a best player available pick. And so, you get Matt Barkley in the 4th round. I think it's a triple. It's a solid pick. I think that if given the opportunity with a great supporting cast, a solid offensive line, Matt Barkley can do damage in the league. I just wonder if he'll ever get that opportunity. Because, let's face it, when you're drafted in the 4th round, nothing is guaranteed to you. Versus being a 1st-round pick, had he come out last year, he would have gotten an opportunity in this league. But being a 4th-round selection, nothing, absolutely nothing will be guaranteed to Matt Barkley. And so we will see how it shakes out for him in Philadelphia. But it's a triple. Great value in the 4th round. You get a solid pro-ready quarterback in the form of Matt Barkley. We'll see how everything works itself out in Philadelphia for Matt Barkley, the quarterback out of USC, drafted in the 4th round with the 98th overall selection in this draft. So after looking at our first 4 rounds for the Philadelphia Eagles, we go to the needs board, and they drafted Benny Logan, defensive tackle, in the 3rd round. That meets a need on the defensive line, so we mark that off. And now we proceed to go back to the draft. We're in the 5th round, 136th overall selection. Safety out of NC State, Earl Wolff is the pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. You look at Earl Wolff, and to me, here's a very explosive player. 5'11", so right around the average height for a safety. 4'4", 40. So we're looking at a guy that can run. But that's not where the explosiveness ends. We're talking about a guy with a 39-inch vertical and over 11 broad jump. So the explosion is there with Earl Wolff. Not afraid to come up and tackle. Can run. We just talked about the 4.4 speed. The only question I have with him is, can he be strong? In every facet of his game. Can he be strong when he fights for the football? Can he be strong when he comes up against a big, burly ball carrier? Someone with power. He's going to bag up the smaller scat backs because he can run with them and he's strong enough to bring them down. What happens when he meets a guy that's a little bit bigger than he is? We're talking about a 5'11", 210-pound safety, so good size. But what happens when he meets that back that's a little bit bigger than him? I just told you we're looking at a 210-pound safety, about 5'11", so solidly built. But what happens when that 225-pound back that carries a heavy punch comes at Earl Wolff full speed? Can he make that tackle? I'm questioning his open field tackling when concerning himself with a bigger specimen. When that back is Adrian Peterson, can he get him down? When that back is Alfred Morris, a guy that he'll see twice a year in his division, can he bring him down? That's the question I have about Earl Wolff. When it's a jump ball with a bigger receiver, again, 5'11", average height for a safety. I told you this guy can jump out of the gym. So jumping and explosion isn't a problem. But what happens when that receiver is 3 inches, 4 inches taller than him, can also jump, and both of them are going after the football? Can Earl Wolff be strong enough to go up and fight for that football and come away with it, or at least not let that receiver snatch it away from him? Strength. In catching the football and making tackles, that's the question I have about Earl Wolff. I think this is a really good pick at a position of need. You look at safety for the Eagles. They went out and made some moves in free agency to kind of shore up that position. But a guy like Kenny Phillips, you can't trust to play 16 games in a season. And so a guy like Earl Wolff isn't a bad option as a young draft pick to have come in and possibly start for you in the 2013 season. At some point, don't be surprised if Earl Wolff is in the game getting meaningful reps for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2013 season because he's a really good player. He's very smart. He understands the safety position. And he's a guy that can come and help you right away. So don't be surprised if Earl Wolff is a guy that gets on the field in his rookie season. I love the pick. To me, it's a triple. In the 5th round, pick 136, safety out of NC State, Earl Wolff. It meets a need. It's a great pick, great value in the 5th round. It's a triple. So looking at that pick, immediately we talk about safety. We just talked about it being a position of need. We go to the needs board, take safety off. Eagles are done with the needs that I felt like they had to address coming into this draft. So you get to the 7th round, and the Eagles had 3 7th-round selections. They start with their first of those 3 in the 7th round at pick 212. Defensive end out of Utah, Joe Kruger. You got this pick from the Cleveland Browns. Here's a guy with bloodlines. Brother Paul is a really good outside linebacker, rush linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. He just signed with the Browns in free agency. We know what he was able to do in helping the Ravens win the Super Bowl a season ago. And so here's a guy, much like his brother, that can get after the quarterback. However, I thought he could have used another year of college. More seasoning, fill out his frame a little bit better. He's a big guy. We're talking about 6'6", 260 pounds or so. But he needs to get stronger. He needs to learn how to use his leverage better. He's a big guy, so he needs to learn how to get his pad level lower. These are all things that he could have done at the college level, became an elite, polished athlete, and raised his draft stock. Instead, he comes out early after his junior season, is picked in the 7th round. Now you're left to wonder if that was a smart decision or not. I like Joe Kruger. I think he's got immense potential. And look, I just told you he's a physical specimen. He's 6'6", about 260, 270. So we're talking about a guy that's extremely big. But I don't know if he has all of the mental aspects of the game down pat. These are things that he can be coached. But again, when you're a 7th-round selection and there's extra work needing to be paid attention to you, how long is your leash? That's what I wonder about Joe Kruger. So many guys come out early, are very talented, but they go unnoticed or that potential is untapped and they fall by the wayside. I'm afraid that Joe Kruger could be one of those casualties by coming out of school early. We'll see. I think he's got potential. I think he's very talented. I think he's very athletically gifted. I just think he needed more seasoning. And he had a year left of eligibility at school, and he could have done that. He chose to come out early. He's a 7th-round pick. He's a double. To me, if the Eagles are willing to work with this guy and get the most out of Joe Kruger, he's the guy that can help the Eagles. But to me, I could easily see this guy not even making a roster. And again, when you're a 7th-round pick, it's a tough go of it to make the roster in the National Football League. There's so many guys competing for not a lot of spots. When you're drafted in the 7th round, it's tough sledding. But it's a double for Joe Kruger in the 7th round. You look at their second 7th-round selection at 218. Cornerback out of Oregon State. This pick is from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jordan Poyer. Now, I actually was really enamored with Jordan Poyer coming into the draft. I thought this is a really long corner. We're talking about a 6-foot corner. Can run. He's a 4.5 40 guy. He can play out wide. He's not really great in press coverage, but he makes plays on the football. He's got great hands. Not afraid to make a play on the football. I like Jordan Poyer a lot. I thought that he impressed some people with his athleticism for his size. Again, he can run around. He can do all the things on the field. What worries me a little bit with him, he's not physical. I just told you he's not really great in press coverage. He's not afraid to tackle, but because you're not afraid doesn't mean you're a great tackler. And I don't think that Jordan Poyer is a great tackler. 8 reps at 2 1/4, not impressive. And at 190, at a $190 and 6 feet tall, very slender frame. So he's going to have to work on that at the next level. But all the attributes you look for in a guy that can come in, play some nickel, play out wide for you, a versatile corner, Jordan Poyer has for the most part. The thing that attracted me to him the most was the ball skills and his ability to go after it. When he sees it, he locks in and he makes a play on the football. He has hands like a receiver, has the athleticism like a receiver. Problem is, he also has a frame like a receiver as well. And when you get up against physical guys, he's going to be outmatched. But I could easily see Jordan Poyer making his roster because he's very talented. He gives you extra value in the returns game, but I don't think he's athletic enough. The Eagles have way too many athletes for a guy like Jordan Poyer to be back there returning punts for you. I don't think he has that extra gear. At 4'5", that extra gear, not only to take it to the next level, but take it the distance isn't there. But he doesn't make people miss. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle. And so I don't think the punt return aspect of Jordan Poyer's game is going to translate to the next level. I just look at him as a cornerback and a really good one. If he can fine-tune his skills, fill out his frame, get stronger, I like Jordan Poyer. I think he can make this roster at 218 in the 7th round, cornerback out of Oregon State. It's a double for me. Solid pick by the Eagles at the back half of this draft. You look at their final pick and their final 7th round selection, the third and final 7th round selection, 239, defensive end out of Oklahoma, David King. Here's a guy that, to me, it's hard to really identify what he's going to be at the next level. We're talking 6'5", 280, 285, 290, somewhere in that range. At college, he played inside, he played outside, he was very versatile. But he wasn't great at anything. He was just good at everything. And a guy that's good at everything but not great at one thing generally doesn't flourish at the next level. A jack of all trades. It's great because it adds value. It gives you more of a chance of sticking on a roster. If you can do a lot of things, the more you can do, the better it is for you sticking with a team on a roster. If you're an offensive lineman and you're a guard and you can play center too, great. That's more of a reason for me to keep you around on this football team. You can play more than one position. For David King, though, at defensive line, it's great that you can play inside and outside, but that's at college. At 290 pounds, I don't think you can play both inside and outside at the next level. I think you're just strictly a defensive end. Problem is, against elite tackles, against tackles in general in the National Football League, I don't think this guy can win. And so where he's going to be able to flourish is inside. Problem is I think he's a little too small to be inside. So what do you do with David King? Because outside, he's not athletically gifted enough to beat tackles consistently in this league. You put him inside, and I don't think he's big enough to handle guards and center inside in this league. And so I have a hard time thinking that David King is going to find a way onto this roster. Because simply put, he just isn't good enough at anything. He's good at everything, not great at one thing. And I think it's going to hurt him. I don't think he's good enough at end or at defensive tackle. And so we'll see. But at 6'5", 280, 285 pounds, that sounds like a defensive end in a 3-4 defense. And if he can set the edge, stop the run, he's got a shot. But I just don't know. I've got questions. He's a 7th round selection, so we already know he's behind the 8 ball. We'll see. To me, it's a single for David King, defensive end out of Oklahoma, in the 7th round at pick 239. So you look at the Eagles' whole draft. And to me, it's a solid draft. And when it's a solid draft, it's a double. And you look at it, Lane Johnson, home run. Zach Ertz, tight end, home run. Benny Logan, defensive tackle in the 3rd round, triple. Matt Barkley, quarterback in the 4th round, triple. Earl Wolf, safety in the 5th round, triple. Joe Kruger, defensive end, as well as Jordan Poyer, cornerback in the 7th round, both doubles. And David King wraps up the draft at defensive end in the 7th round as a single. You average those up, your aggregate score comes out to a double. And so I think that's what the Eagles did in this draft. I thought they really did some really good work at the top half of this draft. I thought they went kind of mediocre to the middle toward the end of this draft. That's fine for a team that was really aggressive in free agency. They supplemented their free agency class well with the draft. You go and get Lane Johnson. You couple him with a tackle like Jason Peters. You've got probably the most athletically gifted tackle position in the National Football League. Zach Ertz comes over to help you at the tight end position. You still got Selleck. You went out and got another guy that can help you from the Houston Texans. And so you look at Ertz, he comes into the mix. You've got plenty of tight ends to work with now. Benny Logan will come in and help you at defensive tackle. Matt Barkley at quarterback. So you've got a lot of pieces. Wolf at safety. Solid draft. Really solid draft. At the end of the day, I think your first 5 selections are going to make the team. After your 5th round selection with Wolf, I think that's where everything becomes cloudy. Will Joe Kruger find a way onto the roster? Will Jordan Poyer and David King make the roster? All up for grabs. I think Poyer, out of this whole group, has the best chance of sticking around. Kruger, I wouldn't sleep on him as well. David King, to me, is the longest of all of these 7th round selections to make this team. But we'll see. But I think it's a solid draft for the Eagles. I think that in Chip Kelly's first draft as an NFL head coach, he did well. And that's going to do it for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up.
Draft Zone.